Good morning, everybody. I hope you guys have had breakfast already, or you're eating it right now. That'd be the best option. But I'm just glad you guys are here. Reminder, before we jump into this teaching, we are gathered on Zoom at 9:30 on Sunday mornings. So if you are watching this and haven't joined us yet, I really encourage you to. You can even come and turn your camera off if you care to do that, if you don't want to be seen. But it's a great time to play games, to chat. This week we are playing trivia. So if you're watching this before 9:30 on Sunday, whether that's Saturday or Friday or Saturday, I encourage you to come out. It's a great time. Another announcement, Wednesday nights we are doing Youth Alpha, which is also a great time. We are asking the big questions, talking about things about our faith that maybe you've asked in your own relationship with God, or why we have a relationship with God, or is the Bible relevant even now? We're asking those types of questions, which there's a lot of conversation. So I encourage you to come out to that as well, or just watch it on YouTube because it's posted on our YouTube, or just watch it there. This week we are jumping into our second week of the Break It Down series, which is a super exciting week because we are talking about how knowing the full story helps understand smaller passages. Anyways, I'm not going to say much more. I'm really excited about this one because it is pivotal to understanding the Bible and being able to open it and read it and understand what God is saying through the passage by knowing the full story. Whether you may be asking, well, I don't know if God's talking to the Israelites right now while they're in the desert, or who is Paul talking to in this letter, or Paul's in prison. Why is he saying what he's saying? And asking those types of questions, knowing the context, knowing who God's talking to, or what is being said, helps understand the passage that you're reading at hand. All that might have made no sense, all those questions, all what I was just saying. But I'm super excited about this week because it will really help us to understand what it means to read the Bible and how to better read the Bible. So without further ado, I really hope you guys enjoy this teaching as much as I'm excited for you guys to hear it.
What's up, everybody? My name is Terrence, and I have this story that I've been wanting to share with you for a long time. And so it's a story about this guy. Now get this. This guy who was a part of a neighborhood. He was a guy who was blind, actually, and someone told him that there was this other guy. We'll call this other guy Jay. He had an opportunity to make him see and give him sight and restore sight to him. And so it's kind of crazy. So the guy that was blind went to this man Jay, and he told him, he said, "Hey Jay, I heard that you can help me see again." And so Jay says, "Yeah, I believe I can do that." So this is what Jay does. Check this out. Jay spits on the ground, makes some mud, and then puts it on the man who's blind, his eyes. And you know what? He told the man, hey, do me a favor. Go wash your eyes really, really quick in this pool over here. And after you wash your eyes in the pool, you should be able to see. So he does. He goes and he washes his eyes in the pool. And before you know it, you know what? This guy's able to see. He's able to see. Now, doesn't that sound a little bit crazy to you? This guy named Jay, he spat on the ground, made mud, put it on somebody's eyes, and they could see. Can you imagine doing that? You think you can go outside right now, spit on the ground, make some mud, and make somebody see? Crazy, right? You wanna know what's even crazier? That's actually a story from the Bible. You're probably thinking what I was when I first heard that story. That's in the Bible? Isn't the Bible supposed to be helpful to my life? What could that story possibly have to do with me or my life today? Maybe you've heard that the Bible is supposed to change your life and that it's the way God communicates with you, but then you read some of it and thought, wait, that doesn't even make sense. I'm not even sure I understand that. So how is it supposed to help me? It's like a note you find dropped in the hallway at school. You pick it up and you read it, but you don't know the whole story behind it. In other words, you have no background information. You don't know who wrote it or who they wrote it for. You don't know why they wrote it or what they're talking about. So you have to do your best to figure out what they're trying to communicate. You might learn something from the note, but for the most part, you're just guessing about what they're talking about. I think sometimes we try to read the Bible the same way. Here's what I mean. I've got my Bible here, and you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna read the first thing I see, because sometimes that's what happens. We open up our Bibles and we find the first verse that we can find and we read it. So that's what I'm gonna do. They will attack all the walls that surround the city. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the Babylon, appointed Zedekiah to be king of Judah. Shemaiah and Aziel were from the family line of Jonathan. Why are you afraid of mere human beings? Whips crack, wheel clack, horses charge, chariots rumble, horsemen attack, swords flash, spears gleam. Yeah. Can you make a pet out of it like a bird? Wow. When it comes to the Bible, sometimes we randomly pick a spot and start reading, just like I did. Then we try to figure out how what we're reading applies to our lives. We try to understand it without any context, background, or details about why it was written or who it was written to. And because of that, we struggle to understand what it meant when it was written and what it means for us today. Can you imagine being in a fight with your friends and turning to the Bible for answers, only to find these random verses? You'd probably be like, no, what? How does this actually help me figure out what to do about my friendship? I mean, I just picked the verse that talked about making a bird a pet. Maybe that helps you. I'm not sure if it helps me. See what I mean? When we don't know the whole story, we don't understand the point of what we're reading. We don't understand the message or the heart or the purpose of any of it. And that can sometimes leave us feeling like maybe some of the things we've been told about the Bible might not be true. Let's think about what it would look like if we took a different approach to reading the Bible. What if we made an effort to understand what we were reading as we read it? What if we approached the Bible like it was actually full of writings by real people that can really help you navigate your life in today's world? Let me break it down for you. In order to get this, I think we have to start by learning just a little bit more about the Bible itself. For starters, we know it's a really old book that has stuck around for thousands of years, and people really care a lot about it, enough to make it the best-selling book of all time. It's pretty amazing how the Bible all came together. In fact, the entire Bible was written over a 1,500-year period. The first part, the Old Testament, tells about how people followed the one true God before Jesus came. The New Testament was written after Jesus' death and resurrection about 2,000 years ago. It's about his life and the life of his first followers as they learn how to be his friends and follow him. So like I said, the Bible has been a really big deal for the Christian faith for thousands of years now. And honestly, I think that's part of what can make it feel so difficult to understand or apply to our lives today. How could something written so many years ago in a culture and world so different than our own actually help us now? Well, let's take the Declaration of Independence, for example. Don't worry, this history lesson is almost over. That document was written in 1776, which was nearly 250 years ago. And I don't know about you, but I can barely understand what it means. The language they used, the culture they lived in, and the context of their time in history was so different than our world today. Just listen to the very first, very long sentence in the Declaration of Independence to see what I mean. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Listen, that was totally confusing and doesn't make a ton of sense in our culture today, does it? Just think about what it would be like if the founding fathers who wrote the Declaration of Independence were here now, trying to teach us about life today. They wouldn't be able to talk to us about TikTok, Tom Brady, or impel us to understand why Taco Bell is so delicious. And they for sure wouldn't be able to help us navigate texting our crush from math class. But that doesn't mean that everything they had to say would be bad or irrelevant. It doesn't mean we should ignore what they had to say back then altogether. In fact, some things are actually helpful and important to us still. And that's because some wisdom doesn't change over time. The same is true for the Bible. Every book, verse, or letter you read won't always make sense. And that's because it was written in a specific time, culture, and set of circumstances. You can imagine just how different life was in the ancient Middle East than it is to us today. But that doesn't mean we throw it all out just because it doesn't make complete and absolute sense to us now. The Bible actually has a lot of value and importance. And one of the best things we can do to understand Scripture and to apply it to our lives is to put everything in context. To understand more about who wrote it, why they wrote it, when they wrote it, and who they were writing it to. Let me give you an example. One of the most popular verses in the Bible was written by a guy named Paul. As he was writing to the people in the ancient city of Philippi, he made this statement: "For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength." Now this verse is great to quote and makes a great Instagram bio, but if we look at it literally, it doesn't make a ton of sense. We can't do everything because of Christ. We can't fly, we can't read minds, we can't get straight A's just by reading and agreeing with this verse. If we take this verse just by itself without any context to what Paul was trying to say, we don't see the whole story. In fact, this is the way many people wind up totally misusing or misunderstanding the Bible. A lot of really bad things have been done and said by people who didn't understand the whole story of what was going on in Scripture. But if we just take a step back and break down the context or background, specifically of Paul's life when he wrote it, it makes a lot more sense. See, Paul wrote this verse from prison. He had been arrested for telling people about Jesus, which wasn't popular with the people who were in charge 2,000 years ago. He told the people he was writing a letter to that no matter what he went through or how hard life got, he was confident that he would be okay, even in prison. Why? Because he had found that Jesus gave him all the strength he needed to make it through. Now, I don't know about you, but that makes a lot more sense to me. That changes the way I see the verse. And even though I'm not in the same position or place that Paul was when he wrote it, understanding more about why he wrote it helps me to see how it applies to my life. When you know the whole story, things make more sense. So if knowing the whole story can help us with one well-known but often misunderstood statement from the Bible, what if it could help us with every other part too? If we want to understand the Bible better, we have to explore the full story of what was going on. We have to learn a little more about the background of what we're reading. In fact, that's my challenge to you. The next time you read something in the Bible that you don't understand, stop and ask yourself if you know the whole story. To do this, you could ask a few questions to help you figure out the whole story, and then hopefully things will make a bit more sense. First, ask yourself who wrote this and who were they writing to? If we begin to understand who the author was and who they were writing to, we can better understand what was going on to make them write what they wrote. Second, ask yourself, why was this written? If we want to know what something means for us, we should try to better understand why it was written in the first place. Was it a simple detail that was specific to culture 2,000 years ago? Or is it a piece of wisdom that can apply to the way we live today? Third, ask yourself, is it helpful to me right now? Sometimes you'll come across things in the Bible that may not seem helpful to you right now. It doesn't mean that God doesn't have a purpose for what you're reading or that it won't be helpful someday. It just may not be the helpful answer, encouragement, or solution you need in that moment. Don't stress out trying to figure out exactly how you're supposed to apply every part of what you're reading to what you're experiencing right now. Instead, trust that the details that don't always seem helpful now might be showing you something unique about God that you'll discover more about later. This is one of the best parts of reading the Bible. The more you read it, the more it seems to reveal meaning and purpose for unique moments and phases of your life. There's something helpful in everything you read, but you may not always see it right away, and that's okay. One of the cool things about reading the Bible is that if you said yes to Jesus, the Holy Spirit, God Himself, lives inside of you, and He knows everything you're going to face in life. So, He might be putting something from the Bible on your heart so it can be useful later. Whenever you read the Bible, you're getting personal guidance and instruction from God Himself, who knows you completely and sees everything. The Bible might not have been written to you, but it was written for you. Now, this is the coolest thing about reading the Bible. God is making sure that there is something helpful and purposeful in everything you read. You may not always see it right away, but that's okay. Remember, When you know the whole story, things make more sense. Now, you're gonna get an opportunity to tackle some of these questions together in group. And your leader is a great person to turn to when you can't seem to find the answers. Your leaders are there to help you understand the whole story of what you're reading in the Bible. Maybe you'll wind up understanding more about who God is. Maybe you'll begin to see how the Bible is helpful to you for the first time ever. Maybe it will all begin to make more sense. When you know the whole story, things make more sense. Now, as you head to groups today, I want you to think about this question. What's one thing in the Bible that I want to know the whole story about?